Brothers and sisters, every single one of us knows that when you pour water and oil into the same container, no matter how hard you try to mix them, the oil always winds up on top. And you know, the great scholar Ibn al-Jawzi, he actually reflected on this phenomenon and how it symbolizes, it's like the perfect metaphor for a very profound life wisdom, an ancient wisdom. He imagined it in the form of a conversation, wherein water gets fed up and says to oil, the olive oil, what's the matter with you? Where are your manners? Where did your tree come up from in the first place? I watered you. And you just sort of like, you always take the higher road. You always look down upon me. And so the oil responded and said, yeah, it's true. You sourced my tree out of which the olive oil comes, but I'm the one that put up with getting squeezed, getting processed, while you settled for the comfortable life, the path of least resistance. You just flow between the riverbanks. You'll trickle down into whatever hole happens to already be there. You don't put in much work like me. And so it was because I endured that I was elevated. And so water responded and said, it doesn't matter, I'm the source. It all started with me. And so the oil said to him, calm down, don't embarrass yourself, you only operate underground. And when we bring you close to the lantern, you put out the flame. I fuel the flame. I give rise to the fire. I am the source of energy. And so this allegory or this metaphor, this example that is struck is a very well-known wisdom. You know, the Arabs used to say, لا تحسبن المجد تمرا أنت آكله لن تبلغ المجد حتى تلعق الصبر. Don't think that glory, even in English we say no guts, no glory, right? Don't think that glory are some dates, some sweet, delicious dessert, some dates that you're just going to just eat up effortlessly. You will not get to glory until you put up with the bitter taste of patience. That's the only way. But how do you put up with the bitter taste of patience? That's where I want to move to now. To be honest, we're human beings. And even animals. If they don't see a little bit of the success story, if they can't notice that they're making strides, that there's progress, that there's some sort of wins, they lose wind, they lose stamina, they lose the endurance that will elevate them eventually. You know, there's actually a very famous study by a Harvard psychologist. His name's Kurt Richter, his rat experiment. So he grabs a whole bunch of different rats, and you know, wild rats swim better than like domestic rats, but it didn't matter. He puts them all in water. This has nothing to do with water and oil. And within 15 minutes, they all drown. They give up. There's no point in swimming. They drown. Then he started taking these rats. Right before they drown, he saves them. And he dries them up, maybe gives them some food, lets them rest, and then throws them back in the water. Those rats kept swimming for days, not 15 minutes. Why? Because now they've developed, this is the sort of what people usually take from this study, that if there's a reason to keep fighting, I'll fight, but I got to see the reason. Give me some sort of reason. Likewise, how do you sustain momentum? And the wounds of this ummah are many. In Turkmenistan and in Sudan, it's not just Palestine. But that's front and center, and nothing unites the ummah like Palestine. And it will be the beginning for everything else, inshallah. A full year. How do you not lose steam? It is extremely important that just as we grieve their deaths, we celebrate their lives. This is number one. Celebrate their wins. They are a success story, not just in the hereafter. You know, this mass conversion we're sort of all feeling of people coming to Islam, it's not because they're being killed. It's because of the resilience of the survivors. Like, how in the world... You know, we're in Suicide Awareness Week as well. The whole world is being reminded, as it should be, about how many people are struggling there and can't put up with life and its pains and its anguish and otherwise. You know what does way better work at healing people than Suicide Awareness Week and the whole mental health industry combined and all of us preachers up here doing da'wah? The therapy and the da'wah of the people of Gaza to the world. The people are all looking like, I don't know what that is, but I want that. How are you so strong? How are you so content living through what I can't even watch? How do you keep going? What is that? Who are those people? That's worth celebrating. You even think on the ground, like you cut off all electricity, you cut off all water supplies. I go and make homemade, makeshift tools to desalinate the water in Gaza, to go get ocean water and turn it into drinking water. What resilience! The superpowers of the world combined can't keep me on my knees. It's unbelievable. You read about a physician in Gaza who took the flimsy little aluminum wires that are on the noseband of those COVID face masks. You pull out that little wire. She restores someone's blown off jaw with that little wire. And it works. It's worth celebrating. How are their phones still on? Some of them were grabbing dynamite, remote controls that failed, didn't explode, and they're charging their phones with it to tell the world we're still here, Israel's lying, yes, they are targeting children, you can't lie to the camera. Incredible. But not just that, brothers and sisters. Don't just celebrate their wins to keep going. Celebrate your wins as well. That Allah has used you, and you will lose steam if you don't remember this, has already used you to begin turning the tide. This is not some premature celebration. I'm not under any delusion that things can ever change overnight, but the tide is beginning to turn. Allah has used you for that. Wallahi, it's turning. I put together a list that I'm going to read to you because I feel your pain and mine that we do need to hear it. The banning of pro-Gazan, pro-Palestinian content on nearly every platform on social media, it has made it 10 times harder for us to get the word out, right? The presidents of countries are meeting with the CEOs of these platforms and arresting them, and it's still not enough to keep us down. The suppression and the shadow banning on social media has failed. The narrative is swinging overwhelmingly in the favor of the Palestinian people. Even the university encampments that are restarting now with the new semester, right? Ripple effect globally. The world has saw them, and they were forced to react and try to suppress them, which made it erupt even more. And it wasn't even coordinated, which was a sign from Allah Azza wa Jal. Had they all been centralized and coordinated, maybe they would have squashed them all at once. Every time they try to put one down, 15 more pop up all over the globe. And then university after university in this past year have been forced to vote on divesting, removing money from these companies that are incentivized, are encouraged in keeping wars going, because if there's no wars, how can I make money off of the weapons, the arms sales? When a country like Colombia and a country like the UK, the monster parent of the Zionist state of Israel, have already halted some of their arms sales to Israel. When the number of students and employees that were blacklisted, that were doxxed for standing for justice, standing for the people of Gaza, standing against the genocide, do you know how many have been overturned? That's worth celebrating. You did that. Do you know that Puma, the famous company, has rescinded already, has removed its endorsement, its sponsorship of the Israeli national team? American Airlines has canceled all flights to Israel until at least next April. You already know that Biden was forced to rescind his candidacy. He handed it off. And Harris's numbers are nosediving. No one's buying it anymore. The scare tactics aren't working anymore. The lies are out. The Starbucks CEO has been fired. And McDonald's was in denial, and now through their teeth they admit, yes, it's true. We have lost $7 billion. And one of the two reasons why it happened is what they call the Muslim boycott. You did that. And you already know what South Africa has done of indicting the genocidal apartheid state in the International Court of Justice. And you already know that Mexico and Spain and Ireland and Norway have now officially added themselves to 140 plus countries in recognizing officially the state of Palestine. And just 2 days ago, in a historic moment, somewhat symbolic for now, but it was not possible 2 years ago, right? Palestine was just seated at the UN General Assembly. Samsung Next has just shut down all operations in Tel Aviv. And Intel, the juggernaut of a software company and hardware, have just halted $15 billion of expansion in Israel. Which means that there is an overwhelming faltering of confidence in that deranged genocidal state. You did that, brothers and sisters. And of the ways to keep going is to stop and say, I need to celebrate this. وَمَا رَمَيْتَ إِذْ رَمَيْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ رَمَى. For sure, as Allah said in the Quran, you don't shoot when you shoot except that it's Allah who shoots, right? So when you make an attempt with some sort of strategy, whether you're sharing or otherwise, you're taking your shot at pushing back, right? It is Allah ultimately who made it impactful, but He used me. He instrumentalized me. He honored me with being a part of this. And some of it has started working. And so through that you say, there's no turning back now. After He has shown me, this is a point of no return. Palestine is just the beginning. We're just getting started. May Allah give us the sustained momentum and stamina to continue to push through in ways that will earn us His pleasure. Allahumma ameen. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم. الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعد أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ونبيه ورسوله. Lastly, brothers and sisters, since we are just getting started, and this is a marathon and not a sprint, we must also remember to say that pacing ourselves is necessary and necessarily Islamic. What do I mean by this? Yes, we believe that in the same moment they're being murdered by devils, they're being received by angels, right? But that doesn't mean while we're still here on the ground, we can just keep watching without effect them getting murdered by devils. There is a trauma there. And just accepting that is helpful. Because the road from trauma to triumph is a tricky road. And our deen taught us how to pace ourselves so it doesn't give you an adverse reaction. It doesn't sort of like break you. And it's normal and it's human. And the Prophet ﷺ justified it. You know, like the way Allah created us, created our minds, our brain. Like when you're cold, your brain tells you to shiver, so you heat up, right? It's normal. Survival mechanism. When you're hot, your brain tells your body sweat, so you cool off. Likewise, when you're traumatized, when there's too much of something, your brain just makes you numb to it, so you can survive. And I only say that to say, don't feel too guilty. Don't say, oh, I'm just a bad person. Imposter syndrome, or they call it survivor, whatever terms we're going to tack onto it, in our vernacular, in our language today, right? It's all right. It's okay. You're thirsty for some wins. You're tired from all, it's all right. Even a marketing specialist was sharing with us that when you put good news on social media about Gaza now, it gets engaged. And you put more of the bad news, the sob story, people have just stopped engaging it. Why? It's normal. They don't see it anymore. Allah protects them so that they don't break. You're not doing anyone a favor by burning out. So it's okay to take a breather. Say, I'm not okay right now, so that you can get back to it, because we're just getting started. That's the idea. Where is this in our deen? All over. But I'll give you one important incident to remember. When the Prophet ﷺ was standing on the blessed minbar, he was receiving news of what was happening to the Muslims in the Battle of Mu'tah. Can you imagine? It's as if he's watching, as if it was being live streamed to him, alayhi salatu wassalam. And he says, as Anas narrates, that Zayd has been martyred. And this is his adopted son. And he's saying this, and the tears are streaming down his cheeks as he's sharing it with the people. It's happening live to him. And he says, Ja'far, his cousin, his brother, picked up the flag. Flag can't fall. And Ja'far is martyred. And he's crying, alayhi salatu wasalam. And then Abdullah ibn Rawaha picks up the flag, and Abdullah ibn Rawaha is martyred. And then the flag has now been taken by one of the swords of God, and he has given the Muslims an exit. It was Khalid bin Walid radiallahu an. And the army comes back 600 miles away. They were out in present-day Jordan. Exactly as he told, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But he goes to the family of Ja'far. And he goes to the Muslims. And he says to them what? Prepare some food for the family of Ja'far. فَإِنَّهُ أَتَاهُم مَا يَشْغَلُهُم. There has come to them that which has consumed them. Give them room to breathe. Spare them of some of their duties. It's fine. He didn't say he's a martyr, no one's allowed to cry. No. Bring them some food. They're not okay right now, and they have a right to not be okay right now. Yes, it's amazing that this is his brother, and he's the one anchoring other people. It's amazing, but not everyone should be like that. You know, I had an imam in New York City who reached out to me a few months ago and said to me, Muhammad, I promised myself I would not cry in front of the community regarding Gaza. He said, but when I'm alone, when I'm done with sort of like the busyness of my preoccupation, I'm not okay. And the first thing that came to mind, by the way, when he said that is that's extremely impressive. The fact that you can sort of keep it collected and take care of everyone else first. But not everyone's got to be like that. And not at every moment. Even the prophets, Musa alayhi salam said to his man Yusha, لَقَدْ لَقِينَا مِن سَفَرِنَا هَذَا نَصَبًا. We have gone through great fatigue on this journey of ours. Surah Al-Kahf, it's there. Yes, the best way and the trophy moment is when you can speak to Allah and that's enough. But Allah showed us that even the prophets get to speak to people, get to vent. That's their right. And so the Prophet ﷺ, after 3 days of giving Ja'far's family their space, he went and told them, now we're going to move on. That's how you do it, right? He said, do not cry over my brother. And he's the one that watched it after today. Meaning don't get bogged down by this. Space, resume. And likewise, brothers and sisters, stop feeling sorry for yourself that you took a little bit of a break or a breather. Stop feeling guilty. Stop feeling sort of, jaded about this ummah ad infinitum, forever. No. It's now time to get back to work. It's time to resume. Allah has honored us. He has used us. And as much as I'd love to end the khutbah with an ayah or a hadith, just remember what the first Prime Minister of Israel has reportedly said years ago. The old will die and the young will forget. Alhamdulillah, we haven't forgotten. And more of this ummah is accepting to work in the dark. I don't even know how all these dots are going to connect. I don't know how it's going to come full circle. But I'm accepting that Allah has used me, has honored me. I accept it's enough for me to be part of the process. It's enough for me that Allah sees in me that I believe in His words, إِنَّا لَنَنْصُرُ رُسُلَنَا وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَيَوْمَ يَقُومُ الْأَشْهَادِ. We promise, on our clock, but we promise, we will give victory to the messenger and the believers in messengers. Both in this world and in the next, the verse says. It's enough of an honor that Allah sees me believing in that. Even if I can't fully make it out, He'll make it make sense later. May Allah use us and not replace us. Accept us in the service of His deen and protect us from being distracted. Protect us from being debilitated. Protect us from being a liability for this ummah, not a living force that carries it. Allahumma ameen. May Allah forgive us of our sins, public and private, that slow us down, and fill us with certainty and confidence that will accelerate us forward. Give cures to every sick Muslim, and give healing to every pained person, and use us as an asset for the well-being of humanity.